This video exists as a truly tragic display of irony. The game that exhibits all of the worst things about RPGMaker was made by the people who made RPGMaker. So everybody knows Shield Hero, right? It's that anime with the raccoon girl and weird angel loli. Actually, if you don't know it, that might be too generic of an explanation for anime. Basically, it's a run-of-the-mill transported to another world anime, complete with a strange lust for children and an overpowered Chad protagonist. That explanation might get me killed, but YouTube disabled dislikes, so we're all good. To be fair, Shield Hero does do some unique and interesting things, but that's not what we're here to discuss. This isn't Debate Club, this is Show and Tell, and what I've got to show you isn't just the shittiest video game adaptation of an anime I've ever played. It's also absolutely the worst RPGMaker game I've ever played. Behold, the rising of the Shield Hero. Relive the animation. If that subtext is scaring you too, good. You probably instantly understood this, but it basically means the game is just the entire anime sorta recreated in RPGMaker, but add bad grinding for 6 hours, bad music, bad pacing, bad effort, bad cutscenes, and take out all the voice acting. The dialogue is literally taken line for line from the anime, and they still fuck it up. Right out of the gate, I want to pay special attention to the music, because I'm not gonna talk about it more than once. I'm just turning off. I'm turning it off. I would rather sit here in silence than continue to listen to this fucking RPGMaker music. That clip pretty much explains it. They play the same shitty music on loop for about 15 minutes at a time. I guess I can't really be mad though. I mean, they did advertise that they were gonna do this. Oh, what? The music is supposed to change depending on the tone of the scene? Nah, fuck all that effort shit. I only get paid if we hit the deadline, and we've only got a week left. Just pick music at random. People only care about the raccoon girl anyways. After the game sent me out on my 10th grind for random bullshit that doesn't mean anything quest, I just turned the music off and started playing Kanye. I am not about to let myself get brainwashed by the hypnotic rhythms of default RPGMaker sounding music. Whew, okay, now that that's out of my system, let's talk about the actual game. Actually, how about instead of talking, we relive the animation?
俺たちがお前らの敵に回るかもしれないぜ。こいつら、今の状況を受け入れるどころか、立場と報酬の主張を始めやがった。しょうがないな。
考える余地はありそうですね。
ま、ドイツが相手でも話は変わらねえけどな。ああ、どんだけたくましいんだよ。
盾の勇者様、仲間になってあげますよ。そうそう、感謝してください。
じゃあ、先に契約
に素直じゃねえか。
Alright, let's pause here and take a moment to put into words why the game is inferior to the anime. I mean, you can tell, but verbalizing how you feel is important. To be fair, for the most part, the game does an alright job at recreating scenes from the anime. Sure, the maps feel completely lifeless, and with the lack of lighting and detail, it all around looks worse, but it gets things generally right, and the mapping makes good use of the default RPGMaker assets. There are also a few custom assets that admittedly look really good, and it makes me wonder at what the game could have been if Kadokawa wasn't rushing to turn a quick buck. I mean, for example, they had this great original soundtrack from the anime that they could have used. They clearly had the rights to it. Imagine how much better this game would have been with it. Anyways, none of this is really the core issue. It's more fundamental than that. In anime, they have a bunch of different angles that they can cut between to heighten the intensity of a scene. They also have, you know, animation to keep people visually engaged. In the game, unless it's a big gesture gesture, the characters kinda just stand there with the camera perma-glued to the back of their heads. They sometimes intercut frames from the anime to better communicate what's happening, but then you just wonder what's even the point. Also, because dialogue boxes wait for player input before continuing, and there's no voice acting, a lot of interactions just completely fail to land. Even when the dialogue is terrible in the anime, the consumer processes it better because of the timing of the scene. For example, look at this.
いらっしゃい。お客さん初めてだな。うちに入るとは目の付けどころが違うね。
ええ、彼女に紹介してもらって。
嬉しいこと言ってくれるね。ところで、その変わった服装の彼氏は何者だい？
親父さんもわかるでしょ？
This dialogue on its own is really hard to follow, and to be honest, this scene in the anime isn't all that great. However, it's leagues better than the game, where you only have the dialogue and the voices in your head to go off of. It makes the dialogue come across like a bunch of crazy people talking to demons only they can see. Even though it's the exact same dialogue, in the anime it was delivered in a much better way, with visuals to back it up and communicate things the dialogue didn't. The dialogue alone isn't strong enough to carry Shield Hero. The visual actions and reactions of other characters tell a story too, a story the game definitely doesn't tell. For example, Raftalia goes from hardly any romantic interest in Naofumi straight to, if we kiss I'll get pregnant, This transition isn't as abrupt in the anime because of Raftalia's physical actions and inflection while saying certain lines.
娘みたいなもんだ。
違います。
そんなことよりも。
It also helps that the anime is paced at talking speed versus at reading speed, which is a lot faster. Ultimately, the character development in the game doesn't land because the player can't be sure how to interpret the dialogue. Also, I said this before, but nearly every scene includes at least one frame from the anime, often more. This was even used as a selling point for the game, and I just don't get it. Why would you want to look at a scattered compilation of still frames when you can just watch them animated? They aren't even unique artwork like if you read the manga. This doesn't make any fucking sense! The only benefit this game has over the anime is that you get to experience the battle system used by Naofumi, which isn't really a benefit. If anything, this game makes me feel absolutely horrible for every single character who's been isekai'd and completely diminishes any interest I had in wanting that to happen to myself. You don't ever really think about it, but every character in traditional isekai has to grind levels. The anime usually have a training montage or make this look cool, but imagine you really had to go out and grind all those levels. Every day you go outside and walk around in a circle, waiting for a random encounter to trigger and spam do the same action until the shitty balloon, rabbit, porcupine, these are just normal things, where's the fantasy, dies. You would go insane. That would be genuinely worse than a 9 to 5 in the real world. However, on top of that, in this game, you are the Shield Hero. This means combat is centered around support, defending your allies and having them do the damage. But this also means that your allies are super weak in order to make things balanced. It's not like this is reserved only for bosses either. Even random encounter enemies do a decent chunk of damage to your allies if left unprotected. Considering a majority of the game is collecting resources in areas padded with random encounters, I'm envisioning a bit of a problem here. Essentially, you need to fight out every single pointless random encounter, because if you don't, your allies die within at most 5 missed escapes. Oh, and if you thought you could just mindlessly button mash and speedrun the pain, then you were sorely mistaken. In combat, Naofumi first has to telegraph the enemy's attacks and then select an ally to protect. If you just turn your brain off and mindlessly button mash, then you won't select the right ally to protect, and then whoops, there goes a bunch of health. So you have to pay close attention to combat you know doesn't benefit you, because 1, you don't need the drops for the quest, and 2, I'm pretty sure the game just auto gives you enough money and XP during time skips to beat the game anyways. Essentially, the game is very obviously wasting your time just to pad out its playtime. Also, the balancing is totally broken. Single enemy fights are a joke because defending someone makes them invincible, and most single enemies don't have multi-hitting attacks. The scariest parts of the game are multiple enemy fights, which are often harder than single enemy boss fights, and poison. If you're really going to play
this game, and I honestly suggest that you don't, then I would highly recommend that you purchase one of our antidotes. Green.
Poison does an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage, and it doesn't go away on its own. I didn't have any antidotes, because I didn't have any reason to. The game said the waves would be hard, but I had no reason to genuinely fear that warning because combat had been so consistently easy up until that point. Also, even with the poison, I still didn't die. That didn't happen until the second wave where I forgot I had a heal skill. Another weird thing about this battle system is that Naofumi never dies, it's his party members who do. So the game actually gets harder the more party members you get.
Alright, I'll give the game some credit. That's a pretty unique battle system. But at the same time, it makes progression feel like a negative, which is just like, come on, man.
Now, a system like this might have been fun if it wasn't made in RPGMaker, which is a statement that can kinda be applied to this whole game. Look, my channel is majority RPGMaker content. I love the engine, and I think if placed in the right hands, it can do some pretty incredible things.
However, this feels more like Kadokawa was just trying to attach a popular IP to RPGMaker in order to get it more visibility, when in all actuality, all this does is make people hate the engine more. If I were Kadokawa, I would constantly be on the lookout for good games made in RPGMaker so I could either promote or publish them for free if I had to, because that shows people two things. One, I care about the people who make games in my engine, and two, I care about getting people games that they actually care about instead of just using popular IPs to farm guaranteed money because I'm a piece of shit. This game is the perfect representation of greed over quality. They put in a shitload of pointless systems that add nothing to the gameplay, such as being able to trade, which is just the exact same thing as selling goods to a merchant, just so they could advertise on the Steam page that we have a trading system. They made it in RPGMaker and devoted what at least seems like as little cash as possible to its development because they knew that they had immediate built-in buyers just because of the Shield Hero name. Some of the people in the reviews are coping extremely hard, and I feel bad for them. I don't think that the game turning out the way that it did is the fault of the people who actually worked on it, nor do I think that they're evil. I think this is just an example of the greedy underbelly of a large corporation being exposed. It's a sad game, and it makes me sad, and I don't want to spend any more time on it.